Hi, I'm Chef Jack Irwin, your Food Connections host. This episode, we will be bringing you tips on how to make a signature fried chicken sandwich and world-famous onion rings. Stay with us.
Program funding made possible in part by the Paul and Joanne Warleen Family Fund at the Austin Area Foundation.
Hi everybody, we're here again today with Food Connections, and we have as our special guest today, Chef Brian Miller from Lansing Corners Bar and Grill here in Austin. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good.
Tell us about how you got into cooking and how you got into being at Lansing Corners.
Well, basically I wanted to own a restaurant since I've been a little kid, and I worked at Frito-Lay years back before I bought it, and I drove by it twice a week and saw a building and I saw an opportunity, and now I'm there.
All right.
I realized that it's more important to be a cook in your own restaurant than anything else.
Oh yes. So had you been cooking for a long time?
Yeah, I cook here and there and I dabble, and I'm always really good at it and good at following recipes, and coming up with stuff is really hard, but I can always do that.
But you're kind of a natural.
Oh yeah.
Natural cook then, and know what needs what when you're cooking.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
kind of how I am
know
also.
what's cooked, what's not cooked, and all that.
And how long have you had Lansing Corners Bar and Grill?
We're going on 3 years on Labor Day,
You are a co-owner, is that right?
along with Steve Patterson.
We're very glad to have you here today, and we're
glad to be here.
We're anxious to see what you've got for us.
All right, I'm gonna be cooking our Minnesota hot chicken sandwich, and I call it Minnesota hot because it's really not hot.
Oh, all
But we're
right.
in Minnesota, so naturally, it's hot to everybody else.
Right.
And then I'm also gonna do our famous onion rings, which, it's kind of a staple of ours that everybody comes in and gets. All right, so the first thing that you want to do when making a fried chicken sandwich is you want to get your fryer oil ready. You got to get it heated. You got to make sure that, when you have a thermometer here, you stick it in, it registers at about 350 degrees. The less oil you have, it can be slightly higher than that because it's going to average out the temperature, and you're going to lose a little bit of temperature once you put something in it. Okay, so next step is we're going to take a raw filet chicken breast, and then we're going to use a seasoned flour concoction, and then we're going to dip it back in the buttermilk, and then we're going to dip it again in here to create a nice coat for it and a nice crust for when we dip it in here, and then you get that crunchy coating.
What kind of seasonings did you put in your flour today, Brian?
So it's a 4 parts flour, 1 part cornstarch. The cornstarch is what gives it the crunch. And then you also want to add 4 tablespoons of a salt pepper mix. And all the salt pepper mix, I always say, are always a 4-to-1 mix of salt to pepper. 2 tablespoons of paprika, and that gives it kind of it doesn't really have much of a flavor itself, but it gives us the nice color and the nice depth of flavor.
Right.
And then you're going to want some kind of garlic. So, I use garlic powder. You can also use like a garlic salt if you really want to. You can use fresh garlic. It doesn't really matter as long as it mixes in evenly. So you want to start with your chicken breast. Now there's a technique to it. When you put it, you want to coat it evenly in flour, but not overly too much. And then you want to take your fist, put it in a fist, and you're going to want to slowly massage it and use your fist as a tenderizer to flatten it out a little bit.
So you didn't tenderize these at all or pound these at all beforehand,
No.
is that correct? So
No.
Okay.
Now, if it's being a little picky and it's not flattening easy, you can take like a fork, and not the smooth sides of the breast, but the fiber side. You can just take and poke a bunch of holes in it, and it'll allow you to move it a little better.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the next step is you're going to want to get this buttermilk. So you can use a low fat, you can use full fat, you can use a condensed buttermilk mix. all that works. I added some hot sauce in there to give it a little extra. You know, we are making a Minnesota hot chicken sandwich. And then whenever you're doing this and putting something in a liquid like that you're gonna batter, you wanna minimize the amount of liquid that's excess on it, because the end breading won't adhere to it as well. So then the next step, you know, we bring it back to the flour mix that we have here, coat it nice. You're gonna wanna press on it. You're gonna wanna get it to adhere to it as good as possible. Backing it down here, again and again, getting it nicely coated. And then I'm gonna bring it over here and set it in my deep fryer. Now Jack's turn.
Oh boy. Okay. Here we go,
So
someone.
step one.
All right.
All right,
Gonna
get
put
her
it in.
there. Yep,
And
yep, coat it up.
coat it a little bit.
Yep,
Gonna
and
do it
then you're
again.
gonna wanna take your fist and you're gonna squish it down. Not so hard that you break it apart, but
Well, I am pretty strong, so I understand. But yeah, you can kind of feel where it needs to be pressed a little bit, right?
Because it's dense.
Where it's, yeah, in certain areas, of course, you can sort of feel that.
All right.
So shake a little extra off.
Yep, and then completely coat it.
All right.
And now you're gonna wanna let it drip dry for a second here,
Okay.
and back again.
Back again here. Get it good and thickly coated.
Yep.
All right. Gets
Yep.
good and impacted in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, and then now you're gonna wanna set it gently into the fryer.
All right.
And now, moment of truth, we drop her in there. And now this is probably gonna take anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes.
Here's about the number one kitchen tip that I could give, and that is when using a recipe, whether it's baking, cooking, whatever you're doing, read through that recipe before you start. Because there's nothing worse than starting a recipe, read the first line, you're starting to make it, and then all of a sudden read a little further. Oh my golly, I missed a step, or I should have done this all together. So read through, familiarize yourself with that recipe before you get going. And it's going to make it much, much easier for you. I think it's probably happened to all of us at some time, and it'll make you think, oh man, I should have looked ahead. This is going to make your recipe turn out much better. I see you don't have any tiny little buns. We want a good-sized bun for these, right?
We use the bigger ones because we make big sandwiches.
Right,
and that's
right.
kind of like our signature deal at Lansing Corners.
Sure, sure.
You know, even our burgers are a half a pound, so
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
we don't mess around. All right, so now the butter looks like it's starting to melt. The best indicator of a hot pan is melted butter. You can burn butter,
Yeah.
and it's not super off-putting, but it's not ideal. So
And this chicken that are out, you don't have to do anything with those. They don't have to be turned in the oil or anything like that. Just
Nope.
wait until they're the desired color
Yep.
that you want. Is that
yep,
right?
you got it.
Okay.
So if you're at home trying to do it in a skillet like this, you're not going to want to fill it all the way with oil because it'll oil over. So you go about
Right.
halfway, and then halfway through you flip it,
Sure.
and that's how you would do it at home.
You're right.
You can take this, and if you want to get it nice and buttery, just take some of the melted butter on the bun, soak it up. I don't know if you can see that.
You recommend doing this way with the butter in the pan first, rather than buttering the bun and then just doing a dry pan?
Yeah, it gets a little bit more even this way.
Okay.
And sometimes you gotta shake them, make sure they're not sticking to your basket.
Looking good already.
Oh yeah.
Now, will those breasts float when they are done?
Yes.
Okay, some things do in the fryer, they'll float when they're done. You can't go just by that, I know, but I'm like, yeah, that's a good
Well, the
indicator.
best way to tell if they're done is to grab a
Good
thermometer.
indicator, yeah, right.
So I don't know if you can see this, but
Little
it's,
bit of,
it's bubbling up, and
little
that's
bit
what
of
you
sizzle
want. You
around
want
them.
the sizzle.
right. And this is, so do you, is this one of your big sells at Lansing Corners?
I would say so. Like,
Yeah, I think
so if our burgers are our #1 seller, but
Oh.
if somebody wants chicken, this is our #1 chicken
I
seller.
see,
So
yeah.
it's tough though. A lot of people don't get the joke, so they're like, "I don't want a hot sandwich," and then we're like,
Oh,
"Well,
sure.
it's not actually hot."
Yeah. Now, do you prepare these to order like we just did?
Yes.
All right, see, that's something people wouldn't expect. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And because so many places you go, you get a frozen product, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
if you are doing these just like we just showed,
Yeah. This is absolutely the
to
process I
order,
go through.
it's like, wow, that's doesn't get much pressure. So that's
Yeah.
great,
Yeah, we always have raw chicken breast. We always make our batter fresh once or twice a day, depending on how busy we are. If you're at home, you're not super familiar with cooking or toasting, you can always cheat and check. And then just know that if it's not crispy, it's not done.
Sure.
You can actually turn it up a little bit.
So do
All right, you can start to see that the chicken's starting to float here, just a little bit. So we got, I would guess, at least a couple more minutes.
getting a nice color. Looks really good. So, how long, do you recall how long Lansing Corners has been open?
I heard a bunch of stories.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
the big Lansing Corners, the Supper Club, opened,
Right.
I want to believe, in the 60s. But, and that was a supper club until about 2005, I think, is when they officially closed.
Yes.
And then it sat vacant for like 5 or 6 years. And then it became an event center, and then it became a bunch of different things,
Yeah.
And I think there was 2 or 3 owners since then, and then me and Steve decided we're just gonna do a bar and grill. And
But you still have the event area, right?
Exactly,
For
yep.
events, yeah.
Yep.
So that's a good thing to know.
Yep.
Well, it's funny, and I don't remember if I've told you this before when I've been out there, but I was the assistant chef out there
Yeah.
in the 70s, like the late 70s.
Uh-huh.
And so, because I had worked for the family for a long time at another location and that, so I went out there for, I don't know, a year and a half or something
Yeah.
like that. So that was, so I used to be in that kitchen as well. I'm sure it's changed a lot. I haven't peeked in
Oh,
there necessarily.
absolutely.
I'm sure it's changed a lot.
so it doesn't hurt to check the temperature of your chicken.
Right. Oh, they look good. And I don't want to.
Just make sure you get it right in the center.
And you're shooting for what temperature, Brian?
You're shooting for at least 165.
Right. Now, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but that piece that I did that you're doing right now kind of looks better than the other one, I think. I feel. It looks a little better than the other one. The one I made, but I don't, I don't. I mean that in the nicest way, I really do.
All right. They are done.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, so now we just
Oh,
have
there we
a little
go.
bit of toast on the bun.
Uh-huh.
Not too much. I would say that's probably even good enough. We don't like to do heavy toast on our buns.
Right. Just a little bit of crispness.
Probably got another 30 seconds. But yeah, we can start doing this here. Actually, I'll do this one. So the thing about a hot chicken sandwich is it's inspired by Southern chicken sandwiches, and they always got a little bit of mayo and some pickles on there.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we gotta do that. That's pickles. Perfect. So that one's set up.
Oh. Look at that color. Gee whiz. Now what do you have here?
Okay, so what makes it Minnesota hot is maple syrup.
Oh,
And what whatever your favorite hot sauce is. We like to use sriracha, and we like to use like a 4-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio.
Okay.
You can make it hotter. You can go 50-50. If you're really adventurous, you can go mostly hot sauce and a little bit of maple syrup just to give it a little sweetness.
Sure.
Or you can just omit that if you really want to. But
Sure.
it's just up to you, however you want to cover your chicken. But this is really popular the way we do it. So
Oh, yeah.
the crucial thing is this is kind of like the last step, and you want to serve it pretty closely after you do that because it's going to make it soggy eventually.
It's such a nice presentation, too, with
Yeah.
the syrup dripping down a little bit on the plate.
Yep.
I like that presentation a lot. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I'll just finish up the other one.
Okay.
I guess I'll use this plate here.
All right.
You don't have to get it spread perfectly because it'll squish out.
Sure. That's okay. If it's squishing out, that means you put enough on. That's great.
There. There you go. Beautiful.
Oh, boy, oh, boy. I'm hungry.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I cannot wait. Here's a little tip about oversalting. If you've ever oversalted your soup or stew, take a peeled potato and drop it in and cook that potato in there for a while, and that is going to absorb all that excess salt. And you will be surprised how that will save the day for you. Okay, so Brian, now you're going to show us how to make Lansing Corners world famous onion rings. I can't wait to find out how you do these and make these so good. So go ahead and show us how you begin.
All right. One thing about onion rings is once I show you, you're gonna be like, wow, that was easy.
Okay,
So,
oh, all right.
the hardest part is cutting the onion, but once you learn the technique, it's actually really easy. So there's a couple ways to do it, but the way I do it, I got it, is I start on one side, the side with basically the roots, and then you flip it, and then you look for the edge here, and then you peel the outer layer off. So you get it to a nice taut skin here. If it's kind of like a shrunken skin on there, then you got to keep going until you get the tight skin.
Okay.
Otherwise you're gonna have some flimsy onion rings.
All
so.
right.
All right, so everybody does this a little bit different, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. At Lansing Corners, we like to give pretty hefty onion rings, so we go 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch, and we're just up and down. Now, they should just kind of fall apart like this.
We sure do. Yeah, they come right apart real nice.
Yep.
In
then-
rings.
Exactly.
Imagine that.
And then if you get one that's kind of tough like this one, you're not going to use the middle, so you can put pressure on the middle, and then slowly get to the ones that you need. Pretty easy.
Perfect.
All right, and just like that, we got a bunch of onion rings. All right, so now that you got your onions cut, you're gonna wanna make your batter. The nice thing is the special flour for the chicken is exactly the same as the special flour for the batter.
Can I just interrupt real quick? Now you saved, rather than use the same flour that you that we mix the chicken in, you
Yep.
saved this ahead of time so there's no cross-contamination, anything like that. So you reserved this ahead of time for your onions, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. Good.
And so
Good
it's the
idea.
same ratio. It's 1 cup. It's 4 to 1. You know, you got your 1 cup of flour, or 4 cups flour, 1 cup of cornstarch, and then you got your 4 tablespoons of salt pepper mix. You got your 2 tablespoons of a garlic salt or garlic powder, and you got 2 tablespoons of paprika. So now we get to add the fun stuff. So you can have onion rings a bunch of different ways. Like you can make them thinner or thicker, or bready, people call them. I try to shoot for right in the middle. But as you add beer, you're gonna wanna whisk it slowly. Not too much, because it'll cake your whisk and then you're just gonna have a mess, but I don't know if you can see this here. Hold it like that. So we're adding and whisking at the same time. The good news is if I make it too thin, you can always add back flour just a little bit.
If for some reason somebody didn't have beer in the house or didn't want to use beer, what might you use as a substitute? Because it's got, you know, I guess it's got the carbonation and stuff like that. I don't know right off what I would recommend for that.
You know, I thought about this, and you can make batter with using water, but I don't know. This adds kind of an element that water doesn't give you.
Yeah. What about, would soda water work?
Yes,
With
that
a little
would
bit
work.
of fizz? maybe?
Absolutely.
I just,
Yep.
I don't know, but okay.
So yeah, I just made a correction there. You make it just a little bit too thin and you just add some flour back and it thickens it right up. Because flour is the most flexible ingredient in there. So a little bit too much flour isn't gonna hurt it. So you want a certain consistency. So this is still just a little bit thin. So we're just gonna add just a little bit more flour.
Because you want it to stick to the onions, right?
Exactly.
Certain thickness, okay.
Okay. All right, so it should just give you a little bit of resistance from here, but you should also have like a string coming up. See how there's a string coming up from it? So like never really disconnects. I would call that good. All right, so give that to Jack. Now, here's the fun part. So, you always want, if you're gonna do this in a deep fryer, you want your basket to be down because you want to, what we call, swim your onion rings. Because otherwise, if you don't, it's gonna stick to the bottom and you'll never get them out of there and they won't be a ring once you do.
Sure.
So,
Okay. Good point.
now this is a small fryer. I can't really fry a bunch at a time, but we'll try, you know, a few here.
So you're
They
flouring
really don't
them-
take very long.
You're flouring them in plain flour first.
Yep, so you're gonna wanna put them in plain flour and it helps the batter stick because it dries them out just a little bit. Kind of like the same with the chicken, you know, you want your wet batter to stick. All right, so we can throw them in here. That's what this one's for. So you wanna make sure you're coating them all the way in batter. And then I would just bring this up here. So right as you pull them out of the batter, you want to put them in the oil. You get the most thickness out of there. And then so if they want to stick at the bottom, you just give it a little jerk
Yeah, they came up.
and then they come right up. Again, if you don't have a deep fryer, you can use a pan. It's actually way easier to use a pan or a pot for onion rings.
You know, you can already see them kind of puffing
Yep.
up, the coating kind of puff up,
Yep.
which is the good part, of course.
So they really don't take very long to cook. You know, I would say anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes, depending on, you know, how hot you have your fryer running. And just a couple 10, 20 degree difference can make a minute or two difference.
Okay.
This one's done.
Oh, look at that.
This one's done.
Well, that couldn't have been easier.
No.
Of course, you did all the work, but still, that couldn't have been easier. I'm really anxious to try these. So, what do you think?
Let's
Is it
let's
time?
dig in.
Has
Yeah.
it cooled down just a little bit for us?
Oh, yeah.
Let me make a little spot here. Okay, so we've got some Lansing sauce here. And
Want me to cut one, or are you gonna?
yeah, that's probably best. Thanks. Easier to dip. Did you hear that crunch? Oh boy. Here we go. Yeah, no, those are really, really good. Oh,
Yeah.
sauce. I love